Welcome to The Path is Always Evolving, a podcast for healing humans and curious souls. Hosted by energy healer Tenya Eichenberg and mind body specialist Eva Zobian Wolf, this show blends science and spirit to explore real life healing, self care, and personal transformation. No fluff, no fixing, just grounded conversations that meet you where you are. Because healing isn't linear, but the path, it's always evolving.
Welcome back to The Path is Always Evolving. I'm Tenya Eichenberg, and with me is my wonderful co-host, Eva. And we are starting a long series. This is probably going to be 15 episodes, maybe, I think. Maybe less, depends on how it all goes. But this is all about chakras. What are they? How do they show up in our daily lives? What do we need to be on the lookout for? How can we balance them both on a conscious level and an energetic level? And I am excited for this series because even as an energy healer, I'm not ashamed to say that I don't have a large working knowledge of the chakra system. I can look at the chakras and go, okay, there's some energetic goo in your heart chakra. I know that the heart chakra is around being loved, feeling loved, giving love. It's around feeling um, uh, appreciated, safe in your own heart space. There's a lot, but beyond that, I couldn't tell you what all of the physical reactions are to an imbalanced heart chakra. So today we're going to learn what the chakras are. We're going to learn how they interact with us on so many different levels. And how it can just impact our daily life and probably impact the people around us as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. This is definitely going to be an interesting series because we were just talking before we got on in terms of the way that we approach the chakras is very different. And when I first started yoga teacher training, I'm very sciencey, very much a science nerd, and had some dabblings in Reiki, crystals, very minimal understanding of how all of that worked. And in the process of going through yoga teacher training, becoming a yoga therapist, I deep dived into a lot of the science and the research behind some of the practices that we were doing in yoga to have a deeper understanding of what they are, what they do, and why they should be used in our, why in 2025 do you want to use crystals and sound bowls and Reiki? And having an understanding of the chakras really grew in that process because I had a very superficial understanding of what the chakras were, right? Like the root chakra has the color red associated with it, has to do with our safety. And that was it. That was my understanding of it. But it's so much more. And so talking about it in terms of um, understanding that it's this energetic blueprint for our health. And when I say health, I mean all the areas in your life where you need to be nourished and flourishing. So your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health. And when we understand the specific components of each of the chakras and then how they all work together, it's a real systematic method for understanding, for me as a yoga therapist, what are the different practices, what are the different movements, what are the different breath exercises that I can do with a client for them to balance their energy and to bring balance into their whole entire body, not just their physical body, but also their energetic body. And the chakras are, once you deep dive into it a little bit more, you get to see where there's areas that are imbalanced. So the words that we use, the postures that we hold, the behaviors that we have. It speaks to, is there an excess of energy in a particular area or a deficiency of energy in a particular area? So first, going back to what are the chakras? They're specific energy centers that start at the root of the body, so the base of the spine. And then from there, it goes up. There's seven. We're only going to talk about seven chakras.
Right.
These are
Yeah, we take,
the
there's like
basic.
144 total. So we cannot touch on all of them. So we're just going to do the main seven that people usually focus on.
And today's episode is just an overview of, well, not just, today's episode is an overview of what are those seven chakras and why do we even want to pay attention to them if you're not in energy or you're not in yoga. How do you use them in your everyday life?
Right.
And one of the things to be mindful of is when we talk about the chakras, they're not a physical location in the body, but they are an energetic location that is associated with a physical location in the body. And where we say that the root chakra, sacral chakra, solar plexus chakra, heart chakra, throat chakra, third eye chakra, and then crown chakra, where those exist, those areas in the body, there is a high concentration of gap junction cells, which are nerve cells. And these are cells that talk to the organs around that area. So when there's an imbalance in a particular chakra, it will manifest or can potentially manifest into dysfunction, dis-ease in particular areas of the body. So if there's a collection of organs in that particular area of the body, are there physical manifestations that are showing up to indicate we have an imbalance in that area? And then we can come at it from both angles, right? So we can come at it from how it is that we are, how it's showing up in our everyday life, and then also looking to see how it collaborates with other areas of our body as well too. And so in that, right, the root chakra is in the hips, in the base of the spine, in the pelvic area. The sacral is a little further up into the low abdomen. The solar plexus
Below the
is
belly button.
right above, right above the navel. And then the heart chakra is the whole area of the heart space, the chest, and then the throat. The third eye is between the eyebrows, and then the crown is at the top of the head.
Yeah, it's the sacral chakra that's just below the belly button, and then the solar plexus is above the belly button. So
and so when we look at those specific areas, then start to look at what are the physical components of it, what are the physical relationships that are happening there, and then in turn there are developmental relationships that happen there. So the root chakra is developed in the womb and up to 12 months in life. The sacral chakra starts about 6 months and goes up to about 2 years. And there is some overlap.
Right.
And then the same thing through each of the separate chakras. And we'll go into that more when we go into further episodes. And the thing is whether or not you had a fabulous childhood, whether or not you had a tumultuous childhood, every single one of us has some event in each of those areas that may have left a energetic mark in our nervous system. And then as we go through life, there's also these different issues, challenges, experiences that are going to affect these specific areas. And one of the ways that we can use this, if we recognize that we're having a period of a lot of fear, shame, guilt,
Mhm.
feeling not heard, then what are the practices that we can do? What are the things that we can implement that allow us to bring that balance into our body? Or do we work with an energy healer to help us bring balance into those particular areas? And then the way that
Yeah.
we can know if that is working, the way that we can know that we're balancing is the pacification of those specific issues that we're seeing in our life in that moment. And that's the thing, this is not stagnant. So, just like in medicine, we're looking at vital signs, we're looking at different blood chemistries because they change minute to minute.
Right.
And
Right.
with your chakras, it's the same thing. Your chakra energy is going to change. So,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
we've been going through that, what have you been learning about the overall concept of the chakras um, that you found interesting as you've been going through this?
So on an energetic level, one of the things I noticed that during meditations, that especially when you're listening to meditations that are specific to like the chakra system, right? Like you want to have that divine light, this column of light going up and down your spine, going through your chakras, how you can be sitting there and start to imagine this light going through your chakras, starting at the base of your spine, right there at your perineum to go all the way up, but yet it might feel like it's not going all the way up. And that it might feel like it's getting stuck, like maybe in your solar plexus. And no matter how much you will or think this light to go through your entire system, when you're truly honest with yourself and paying attention, it gets stuck because there's stuff there that needs to be addressed. And I will tell you that on an energetic level, we can absolutely get somebody's chakras in alignment on an energetic level. But what I found more recently is that because I didn't pay much attention to the physical aspects of it, or the like I was telling you before we came on, that I realized because I started reading that book, Eastern Body, Western Mind, so that I could get a deeper understanding of the chakras. Um, and I knew that if your hips didn't feel right, like I knew a few of those things, but like even as an energy healer, my ego was like, I'll just work on it through energy. Even though as a self-care coach, I'm like, you have to do all of it. But I think that's where that human aspect comes in, is that we don't always see what we need to see.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's one of those things, like if you only work on your mindset, but you ignore the body's energy,
Right.
you're missing half the conversation. But the
Right.
opposite is true as well.
Right. Absolutely. And when it came to my awareness that there definitely is, my root chakra is back out of balance, was the conversation that I had last week with a family member, and then reading the book and realizing that, oh my gosh, the stuff I've been feeling in the last week, because I was so much in my head that I wasn't paying attention to what was going on with my physical body, that I realized that my root chakra on a physical and emotional level was out of whack. Even though on an energetic level it was more balanced, it wasn't as balanced on those other levels. And so I think it's important that we really need to pay attention to all of the different things that are going to show up that will tell us what's going on with each chakra, and then go into how we can balance each one.
Absolutely. And it's an interesting concept because originally Hippocrates, right, the founder, the father of medicine, understood the role and importance of the chakras. So if you look at the medical symbol caduceus, the chakra system starts at the base of the spine, and it's called a kundalini energy source. And that energy starts at the base of the spine, and it winds up through the main meridians, the main nadis of the body, the main energy channels of the body. And they start from the bottom of the spine, and they come up through the Ida and the Pingala. One is sun side, one is moon side, one is sympathetic, one is parasympathetic, and associated with the qualities of each. So one's activating, one's cooling. And as it comes up from the base of the spine, it intersects with the root chakra and then goes up and intersects with the sacral chakra. And then it continues on up through each of the chakras and stops at the third eye. And if you look at the medical symbol, there's a staff and two snakes that wind up and connect with each other. They're intertwining. That symbol is based off of the chakra system. And so in medicine,
Real quick, why do you think medicine got away from that? Because that's interesting to look at, that the doctor who really kind of coined medicine and this symbol of medicine, and how far away we've gotten in the medical field away from it.
So one of the things that happened it's now going on about 175, probably even further back than that, is the separation of the unknown and the known, right? And so the chakra system is, as everybody likes to refer to it, as the woo-woo stuff of the world, right? And for a long time, and I'm not going to get into the very specifics of it, but there's a lot of folks that wanted to separate the unknown from the known. So it was more of what's concrete, what's black and white, what can we see. And then about 175 or so ish years in medicine specifically, they separated what was happening in the body from what was happening in the mind.
Yeah.
And that was a very clear separation, that if it happened in the mind, then it was now the woo-woo stuff, right?
Or psychology, it's known today, not really the woo-woo that we think of woo-woo of the chakra system. It's more the psychology side, the psychiatric side.
Correct. That's when we said that, people had hysteria, and they had something, even to the point where we were saying that people had demons or whatever, it came into that specific area of treatment, and we separated what was happening in the mind from what was happening in the body. And one of the changes that's happening now is we've realized, even in psychotherapy, which is now being referred to as talk therapy, there needs to be some component of the body. So somatic therapy has to be incorporated in some way for us to make headway in both areas, because they are deeply connected. And an understanding of the chakras is incredibly beneficial in being able to understand, why do I have these habits? Why do I do these things? Why do I say these things? Why do I have this feeling? And in each of the chakras, there's something that's referred to as the shadow of the chakras, right? So what happens when it's balanced is the healthy, functional behaviors. And what happens when it's out of balance, depending on, is it too much or too little, is going to be in some way representative of that shadow. So like the root chakra, the shadow, is not feeling safe. And
Fear.
so
Fear, isn't
in
it?
it's fear.
Yeah.
So if you have somebody that maybe it's you, maybe it's somebody that you're dealing with, and all you hear from them is this a lot of fear, 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 then that gives you an idea of what are the things that they're looking for. So if they're afraid of a lot of things, how do you create that space of safety? How do you use words that imply safety?
Mhm.
And rather than saying, oh, you're in a safe space, you can say whatever you want, that doesn't give somebody that feeling.
Right. Right.
But our words and the way that we approach them, the way that we hold a conversation, the way that we um, provide body language, all of those things can speak safety to a person. So that implies the safety.
Yeah.
And they have to feel that in order for it to be embodied into their body. And so you and I were talking about that disconnection earlier.
Yeah.
And the thing is, again, this is not a static process. So the energy moves from the base of the spine to the crown, but it also moves from the crown to the base of the spine. And it's
Right.
this macrocosmic, microcosmic relationship that we are constantly navigating. So as energy workers, one of the things that we do is, so in Reiki, the way that I work with a client is by assessing the level of energy that I'm feeling from the chakras. And then that gives me an indication of where to start working. And
Mhm.
then I go in, I'm providing Reiki, and then I will periodically go back through and just assess the chakras again, just to see where the energy levels have shifted and if what we're doing is working. And if
Right.
what we're doing isn't working, then maybe it's because it's not necessarily because I'm in the wrong area. It's more, is there some resistance or something that the client is really clinging to,
Right.
or are they really resistant to the energy? Um, and again, in all of this, right, for each person, it's their own pace, their own time, and when they're ready, and they get the option to choose. So you can't heal somebody's energy or you can't balance somebody's energy if they're resistant to it, if they're clinging to it.
Right. Right. They have to on some level, they have to want to let it go. And sometimes what I have found in some clients is they have this inherited energy that's it's not even theirs.
Right.
And sometimes we have to ask those questions. Well, does this energy feel like yours or does it feel foreign? And sometimes I'll get, oh, it kind of feels like mine. Well, that tells me that, well, it's probably inherited because, well, it's kind of like your energy. It's a mixture of your energy and who you got it from. And so then we can start to look at it from that perspective. And it's amazing that sometimes when the conscious mind has that realization was of like, oh, this isn't even mine, that it's much easier for them to say, I can let that go because this isn't even mine. Why am I even holding on to this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And the thing is that it's not until we start developing that awareness, we have to be able to see the patterns and see the way that energy shows up and the way that we exist in our body in this moment, the way that we speak, the way that we stand, the way that the level of our voice,
Mhm.
the words that we say. And one of the really simple ways to start doing this is just developing breath awareness, paying attention to where breath is moving in and out of the body. Is there a specific place the energy or the breath isn't moving in the body, or does it kind of gather in one specific area? doing practices like body scans, where you were talking about earlier of doing a chakra energy, but really focusing in on just scanning from the toes to the top of the head and being slow and methodical with it and just paying attention to, again, the same thing. If there's an area in your body that's tight, that's
Mhm.
not moving, that's resistant, that feels foreign to you, right? Where you're just like, I don't feel a lot of sensations in a particular area of my body. Um, those are all energy manifestations. That's the way that your energy is talking to you.
Right.
Um, and those practices of breath awareness, body scanning, those are the physical things that you can do. But also doing things like journaling and
Mhm.
just starting to have these open, honest conversations with yourself and asking yourself a few things. Where in my body do I feel open? Where do I feel guarded? Where do I feel free to move?
Mhm.
And where do I feel, that things just are very sticky and resistant?
Right.
And then just starting from there. That's it.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be huge. Just starting from there and developing that awareness of, okay, if I don't feel movement in my hips, then what are some things that I can just start to do? Well,
Mhm. Yep.
move the hips in any way, shape, or form,
Yeah.
right? Just simple little movements of, I'm just going to make hip circles in any way that feels right. And then making sure to do that in a couple different directions, in a couple different ways, so that you get this 360 idea or 360 picture of, where do I feel fluid? Where do
Mhm.
I feel open? And where do I feel not?
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's it. Just developing the awareness.
I think this is a great starting point and a wonderful explanation as to what that system is and how we can start to become aware of it. And in the next episode, we're going to start with the root chakra. And I know we had talked about like maybe each chakra taking up 2 episodes, but we'll have to wait and see if that's how it's going to go. So come back and join us next week for the root chakra, where we will talk about what it is. We're going to dive deep into what it is, how it shows up in our daily life. What are the moments of truth, right? Of like, how do we know that our root chakra is out of balance based off of how we are going about our day? And then we'll talk about how can we balance it both on a physical, spiritual, emotional, mental, all of it, how we can balance all of it. Um and of course what practices we can use for that. So, make sure you come back and see us next week. We'll
And
see you.
leave a comment on
Yes.
what came up for you. What questions do you have? Let us know.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon.
Take care.